Casting only watches 4 seconds? What happened to 10 seconds? I knew casting was against me. If you don't live in the Southeast, then you might have missed the controversy from last week, though it did escalate into a Deadline article that I'll link below. Let's get into the controversy, and I'll give you my 3 takeaways. Everyone, I'm Matthew Cornwell with Get Taped here in Atlanta, Georgia, one of Atlanta's original audition taping services, which I co-own with my amazingly talented, beautiful wife and best friend, Brooke. The short-ish story is that Raven Drummer, who is a casting director for Tyler Perry Studios, and Tiffany Rashe Williams were on a podcast together. It was Raven's first episode of a new podcast she's doing. And Raven voluntarily posted a clip from that podcast on her Instagram, I think Tuesday of last week. It has since been taken down, but before it was taken down, it had upwards of 600 to 800 comments. It blew up. And while the clip is no longer there, the hour-long podcast is still on her YouTube channel, so I will link that below. And finally, the day after this clip blew up, Raven and Tiffany got on Instagram and did a live, along with Angela Davis and another actor, Chris Green, to talk about this topic. What topic? Well, in the initial clip, Raven is asking Tiffany how long does she watch an audition tape before she hits stop, to which Tiffany quickly replies, 4 seconds. And what caused most of the uproar amongst actors and other industry professionals is that they laughed and giggled and doubled down on this answer. Now, the optics are bad, especially because this clip was posted by Raven. It wasn't some other person trying to vilify Raven by pulling a clip out of context from her podcast. She actually chose this soundbite and posted it herself, ostensibly to promote the podcast by putting a provocative clip out there. And when the comments started blowing up, they were trying to defend the clip by saying, please go watch the full hour-long podcast so you can get more context. But it was a losing battle, especially in today's society, which we'll talk about, because it felt like they were laughing at us actors. They weren't, and they've spent a lot of energy over the last week trying to clarify that, but optics, am I right? And this brings me to my first of 3 takeaways, and that is, your attention span is horrible. Well, that wasn't where you thought I was going to take this video? To be clear, my attention span is horrible too. Do you know what a flow state is? Like when you're engrossed in an activity so much that you don't even notice the passage of time. Like a runner's high, if you're a runner. If not, maybe the last time you did a jigsaw puzzle, if the hours just flew by and you didn't even realize it, that might have been a flow state. But seemingly the days are gone where you can get lost in a task for even an hour and be concentrated on it, be focused on it. Tell me the truth, actors. Can you work on a script for more than an hour straight? Who has time? When you walk into your favorite coffee shop and there's a line, and since it's your favorite shop, you know what you're going to order. What do? You immediately go for your phone because you cannot be expected to spend more than 4 seconds present in this moment, not without the distraction of that phone. And when you're on that phone, what are you doing? On average, you're probably spending 4 seconds looking at whatever you're looking at before you move on to the next thing. You look at the headline of an email. You read the email, but only the first couple lines. You switch over to Instagram and swipe through posts or reels. You go back over to YouTube and watch a couple shorts. You go to your news app and you look at a couple headlines. All the while spending less than 30 seconds, probably closer to 4 seconds on each of these tasks that become absolutely meaningless. And here's my point. You, me, we are hardwired for instant gratification. Smartphones, social media, it's all designed to be in service of that coveted dopamine hit. So before we jump to vilify Raven or Tiffany over having a 4-second attention span, which again, we'll unpack that in a little bit, I want to ask how much time you spent on spooling yourself up on this topic. If you're learning about it right now, then you get a little bit of a pass. But if you found out about it when it happened last week or sometime in the intervening days after, did you watch more than the original clip that was posted on IG? Did you go and watch the whole hour-long podcast like they requested for the full context? Did you read the Deadline article or maybe just the headline? Did you watch the whole IG Live that they did the day after this all blew up? Or maybe just a clip that someone posted after the fact? No? You only watched maybe 4 seconds? Because if you were to click in the show notes below on the link to the full hour-long podcast, the link starts at the offending clip. But if you were to back up and watch the whole podcast, or even just the couple seconds before, you would notice that Tiffany offers actually some interesting wisdom right before the offending clip starts. And I'm just going to kind of paraphrase what she said, which is that essentially to become a good actor, you have to get really good at living life. Your job is to reflect humanity through your unique experience of life. If you get caught in the machine that is this industry, you're in danger of conforming, just parroting what you think casting wants, which is the death of any actor because you lose your individuality. So when casting is watching tapes and 20 out of 25 for the same role all start exactly the same, as if they all went to the same acting coach and that coach told them what to do, what to imitate, to give them what casting wants, well, it becomes painfully clear that those 20 out of 25 actors aren't ready for this role or just aren't ready for prime time. So just by watching a few extra seconds of the podcast, the offending clip starts to gain more context that might make it less offensive, perhaps. Now, again, if you want to just harp on the optics itself, okay, I'm with you. I understand. It was bad for actors to hear what they said about 4 seconds, especially if you're an actor with, say, less than 10 years of experience in this industry. Because as I've argued, our attention spans are so horrible, myself included, we're tempted to only look at headlines, only look at sound bites, and Raven ideally should have understood that going into this and should not have posted the clip without that context. In other words, she really shouldn't have been that surprised that there was a backlash and an uproar and an outcry over this. And this brings me to my second takeaway, which is how everyone has reacted to this clip in such a way that they've generalized this as a problem across all casting offices. Now, several casting offices chimed in the comments and other places to say, this is not how we do business. This is not right. This is wrong. But the more I saw actor responses, the more I got a general vibe that could be encapsulated as the following. I knew casting was against me. And sadly, I'm not being hyperbolic with that. As a taping service, we see actors every day that come in with an anger, a built-in resentment towards casting. And if you have this anger, this resentment, this bitterness towards casting, you think that they're against you, that they are intentionally putting up obstacles to you booking the role, that they're calling you in for no reason, or they're calling you in for the wrong role intentionally, etc. Then you're operating out of either naivete, willful ignorance, fear, or some combination. Because hear me on this. Casting is not out to get you. They're not against you. It just feels ridiculous to even say it that way. It's more ridiculous than flat earth to say that casting is against you. But it's so easy to slip into that mentality because we're doing this vulnerable thing as actors when we audition. We're offering a piece of our heart and soul into that audition every time we hit record. And in this impersonal age of the industry where we never get to see a casting director, except in unfortunate circumstances like last week, it becomes so easy to otherize them, to make them the other, to make it us against them, or to let our fears and frustrations manifest as anger towards them. Here's a thought. I think we'd have a lot less road rage if we all drove around in convertibles. Think about it. When there are barriers between us and the other person, it's so much easier to get angry and to lash out. In the case of actors, the barrier is that camera, the fact that I don't actually get to see you, casting director, in person. It's easier than when I feel vulnerable for not booking or for any number of reasons to then just lash out at this faceless entity that is casting. So please don't let that distance, that disconnect to allow you to start creating a narrative in your own mind of your own making that has no supporting evidence. I've been susceptible to this myself over the years, quite honestly, but I will say that when I did this interview series last year, it drastically changed how I thought about the industry overall, but specifically the different disciplines within the industry. I was smacked in the face by the realization that we're all on the same side. I needed that reminder. If you need to vilify someone, let's vilify studios as a whole. Let's generalize them into a category unfairly, maybe, because studios ostensibly are the ones that are prioritizing commerce over art. But the casting directors, they are not the enemy. Not as a collective, faceless entity. Sure, there are a few casting directors that have less than stellar bedside manner, but we should not generalize an entire profession over a couple of bad seeds. And to be clear, I am not saying that Tiffany or Raven are these bad seeds. I don't know Tiffany personally, but I've known Raven for years, and she is a delightful human and is a positive force in this industry. The fact that she had the wherewithal to bring two actors that were passionately against her onto her Instagram Live the day after this blew up says a lot about her character and her willingness to listen and to change. What I guess I'm saying here is try not to let 4 seconds of one casting director's point of view, or maybe two casting directors' point of view, somehow justify your deep-seated bitterness of an entire industry. Okay, and I want to finish with my third takeaway, which is the actual concept of 4 seconds and whether or not that is something to have an uproar over. Now, I waited several days to do this video, which allowed me to approach it with a much more level head, emotionless approach to the actual situation. I've heard a lot of people talk about it from different sides, and there's so many good points brought up by Angela and Chris in the IG Live, by my friend Jason Warner-Smith in a video he posted on Instagram. So here is what I want to add to the discussion. When you actually listen without emotion to what Tiffany says in the offending clip, this is what I hear her say. When you are wrong for the role, I can figure that out in less than 4 seconds. And to that, I agree. See, some actors don't show up representing what they sold to casting in their headshot, and that is a huge problem. It means Tiffany or Raven or any casting director wasted their time, your agent's time, if you have one, and your time. And if you listen to enough Q&As from casting directors, so many actors have headshots that misrepresent who actually shows up on that audition tape or in that casting room. And actors, it is paramount that you figure this out ASAP. Brooke and I have answers to this, but this isn't the video for it. So DM us, email us, or comment below if you want to learn more. Now, there are other actors that think that one-page co-star is their ticket to stardom or to winning an Oscar or to becoming a series regular, etc. So they end up making ridiculous choices in an effort to stand out or be bold in those first few seconds. And it's so obvious that it ends up sabotaging their own chances. Some actors just aren't trained, so they're not present from that first moment of the scene, or their script analysis is just very poor, and that becomes so obvious in those opening seconds of the video. Then other actors are doing a good job, they're trained. It's just that casting now has new information about either the type of actor they're looking to hire or the other cast that has now been put into place, so it gives context to them, new context to what they need from your role, and no fault of yours, you just no longer are fitting the specs for that role. So even though you put down a good audition, it's nobody's fault that the new information has now disqualified you from this part. And so maybe they watch your tape later, depending on what sort of schedule and deadline they're under, but they know within 4 seconds that they just can't cast you for this role. And there's also actors that are so perfect for the role that within 4 seconds, they're ready to send a deal memo. Now, if you talk to different casting directors, the proportion of each of those categories might be different, but the rest of the actors that show up, the ones that give good reads with good choices, and they're well-trained and they fit the specs of the character, well, of course, they're going to watch your full tape. I mean, I don't know if you realize, but their job is on the line. So they have a pretty big incentive to watch. So even though Tiffany didn't give full context in the clip that went viral, I think I understood her sentiment. See, there's a burden on you, the actor, to understand your job. And I'll go back to paraphrasing Tiffany again. You need to be darn good at reflecting humanity back to the audience. Raw humanity. Whether it's a one-liner or 8 pages, if you haven't accessed that truth before the record button has been hit, then, quite frankly, you have not earned more than 4 seconds of their time. It is your minimum job requirement to be truthful before the scene starts. This is why training is so important, because believe me, after you achieve this place in your work, which will take years of consistent training to get there, then you can sleep at night knowing that your tape is being watched and maybe rewatched. And rewatched. Okay, this topic needed more than 4 seconds to unpack, that's for sure. And I know that for each of the points I made, there are counterpoints that some of you actors are screaming at me. But if by some miracle you're still watching and you're interested in seeing a live discussion about any of these topics, be sure to leave a comment below or email us. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on set.